Welcome to Daily Scripture Reading. I do not own the rights to this music. Acts chapter 27, beginning at verse 14 and ending at verse 44. This is the Amplified Version. Shipwreck. But soon afterward, a violent wind called Irakilo, a northeaster, a tempestuous windstorm like a typhoon, came rushing down from the island, and when the ship was caught in it and could not head against the wind to gain stability, we gave up and, letting her drift, were driven along. We ran under the shelter of a small island 25 miles south of Crete called Clauda, and with great difficulty we were able to get the ship's skiff on the deck and secure it. After hoisting the skiff on board, they used support lines for frapping to undergird and brace the ship's hull, and fearing that they might run aground on the shallows of Syrtis off the north coast of Africa, they let down the sea anchor and lowered the sails and were driven along backwards with the bow into the wind. On the next day, as we were being violently tossed about by the storm and taking on water, they began to jettison the cargo, and on the third day they threw the ship's tackle, spare lines, blocks, miscellaneous equipment overboard with their own hands to further reduce the weight, since neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small storm kept raging about us. From then on, all hope of our being saved was growing worse and worse, and gradually abandoned. After they had gone a long time without food because of seasickness and stress, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have followed my advice and should not have set sail from Crete and brought on this damage and loss. But even now I urge you to keep up your courage and be in good spirits, because there will be no loss of life among you, but only loss of the ship. For this very night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood before me and said, 'Stop being afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. And behold, God has given you the lives of all those who are sailing with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I believe God and have complete confidence in him that it will turn out exactly as I have been told. But we must run the ship aground on some island.' The 14th night had come, and we were drifting and being driven about in the Adriatic Sea, when about midnight the sailors began to suspect that they were approaching some land. So they took soundings using a weighted line and found the depth to be 20 fathoms, 120 feet, and a little farther on they sounded again and found the depth to be 15 fathoms, 90 feet. Then, fearing that we might run aground somewhere on the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern to slow the ship, and kept wishing for daybreak to come. But as the sailors were trying to escape secretly from the ship, and had let down the skiff into the sea, pretending that they were going to lay out anchors from the bow, Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, 'Unless these men remain on the ship, you cannot be saved.' Then the soldiers cut away the ropes that held the skiff and let it fall and drift away. While they waited for the day to dawn, Paul encouraged them all and told them to have some food, saying, 'This is the 14th day that you have been constantly on watch and going without food, having eaten nothing. So I urge you to eat some food, for this is for your survival, for not a hair from the head of any of you will perish.' Having said this, he took bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all, and he broke it and began to eat. Then all of them were encouraged, and their spirits improved, and they also ate some food. All told there were 276 of us aboard the ship. After they had eaten enough, they began to lighten the ship by throwing the wheat from Egypt overboard into the sea. When day came, they did not recognize the land, but they noticed a bay with a beach, and they decided to run the ship ashore there if they could. So they cut the cables and severed the anchors and left them in the sea, while at the same time unlashing the ropes of the rudders and after hoisting the foresail to the wind, they headed steadily for the beach. But striking a reef with waves breaking in on either side, they ran the ship aground. The prow forward point stuck fast and remained immovable, while the stern began to break up under the violent force of the waves. The soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, so that none of them would dive overboard and swim to land and escape. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from carrying out their plan. He commanded those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to the shore, and he commanded the rest to follow, some on floating planks and others on various things from the ship. And so it was that all of them were brought safely to land. The end. God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.